Hey, all, welcome in. I am so excited to have you here today and joined by myself and one of my colleagues. We'll introduce ourselves in just a moment here as folks start to trickle into the meeting. Um, I'm so glad that you're joining us on this Thursday for us. Alrighty. So, my name is Hank. I am a product manager at Paperless Parts. I am joined today by my colleague, Meg. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, all. My name is Meg. I am a fellow senior product manager here at Paperless Parts.
If you haven't heard that title before, it means that our job, Meg and I, is to work with folks like you to make our platform better. And so, on that note, we are so excited today to tell you about a bunch of hidden gem features that we released this year that have already or will make your life easier in paperless parts. Specifically, we are so excited to tell you about 9 different features that we shipped this year, some of which you might not have even seen or heard about before. And hopefully, these are exciting and can make your life a little better. I'm going to start off with a demo of the first 5 or 6, and then I'm going to turn it over to Meg to do the rest. Let's go ahead and begin by talking about updating thickness. If you quote sheet metal parts and paperless parts, you are probably familiar with the screen that we're looking at right here. This is the update thickness dialog. This is something that you want to do when you receive a DXF file, which does not come pre-encoded with the thickness of the sheet metal part that it is describing. Because of that, you're sort of tediously filling out a lot of these values a lot of the time. And we ask you about this when the files come in, and you can get to it on a particular part. But if you've used this before, it's been a little slow to do that, especially when you have a larger quote with a lot of items in it. With this release called Bulk Update Thickness, we added the ability to bulk edit those thickness values. And this can occur anywhere that you're dealing with these kinds of parts. So here I am in a quote. I have a couple different line items, 5 line items that are sheet metal parts and one assembly with a bunch of sheet metal components. And I'm going to show you for this example how we can quickly set the thickness for all of these at will. Starting with quote files, this is the best way to do thickness editing when you've got files, especially coming in from email forwarding. Simply select all the DXF files and access in the actions menu, update thickness. From here, I can set the thickness. Let's do a pretty egregious 0.5 inches for show. And boom, in just seconds, I was able to set the thickness for all of those DXF files. I can do the same thing for line items, selecting all the line items that are DXFs, making sure I only capture the ones that actually have thickness here, and then doing actions, update thickness, where I can once again set that same thickness value here. Here you can see that in some cases, when files are shared across components, I might need to find the ones and replace with a reference version. So I can look at these and see if there are any things that are copied across locations, or in this case, I know that I duplicated some of these files. So I can go ahead and clear these out and make those same edits. This action is also available in other places, like right here, where I can access it for a single component through the actions menu there. Of course, that had to fail on me. 1 second here. Let's take a look. I'll clear these out and show you one more time without these examples. Always fun when you have a little technical difficulty. If you've encountered this issue before, this is when you share files across different contexts. We want to make sure that you are safe and you are not editing files that are found in multiple places that you have unintended consequences for. So trying that again, here we have only the files in one set of places. I can grab the affected components, actions, and update thickness here to the correct value. And you can see that I worked that for components. And if I go ahead and bring those back to the other locations, I'll be able to do that as well. Dragging these back over here to supporting files and putting them back as line items. We'll get that action as well going here. Select actions. Oops. And update thickness. Complete. So with this action, we hopefully have made it a lot easier to get the thickness onto your sheet metal parts to get your quote out faster. When you're updating this thickness, your costing and pricing will respond accordingly. So you can make sure that you're getting the right price and cost very quickly after getting that thickness onto parts. Beyond this, though, we are excited for a whole bunch of other slew of updates around your costing and pricing experience. The first of which is in a place that you might not check so often, and that is the configuration tab. Of course, our lovely configuration team at Paperless Parts is usually getting you set up with these things by the time you're starting to quote in the platform, so you may not spend a lot of time here. But if you ever do, if you're ever tweaking your operations and processes and whatnot, we've made it easier than ever to understand what's in here and make changes with a visual upgrade to this space. Not only can you see a vertical tab list with all the new categories, including our brand new requirements review feature, big plug for that if you haven't tried it yet, but also each of the configuration tab pages has been visually upgraded to give you a cleaner experience. Now, this is real valuable, especially when your team is working with the defaults for variables in your operations. For example, introducing labor rates or costs can be tweaked in the the default values of variables in your operation definitions. So this means your team can quickly see what the variables are and change them. And of course, this was already possible, but now it's even easier to see those things and make those changes with a cleaner, tighter interface. And all the fields have been modernized as well. But of course, this is out of the way. What about where you actually spend a lot of your time? Well, we've upgraded that too. Here I am in another sample quote looking at a particular machined part that I have already set up the router for. And we'll immediately start to notice a couple of new things right from here, thanks to some of these upgrades. First of all, you may have seen this kind of note sticky here before, but that didn't actually necessarily do anything other than tell you that there was notes. Well, for the first time with this upgrade, we have now added the ability to see what the notes are without ever opening an operation. This is really helpful to understand what your teammates have done in the routers that you are costing and pricing from, as well as make changes along the way and have that reflected as you start to review your router at the end. That's not all though. When I go ahead and click this, we'll see the second major upgrade that we've made here, which is a revised higher density costing and pricing experience. If you were using our platform just a few months ago, you may remember that we had a way less dense experience here to begin with. All of the accordions, these drop downs, used to be kind of padded out on the sides. You'd have less space to actually view and work with your variables. We've now tightened that up, widened out the interface so that you have a full set of area, and tightened the headers as well so you can view more on screen at once. Not only that, but when you collapse or expand these headers, we will do our best to remember them for certain categories. Like the settings category will remember that it stays closed. So when you open it up again, it stays closed, as does costing preview and notes. Altogether, this means that you can make sure the things that you don't care about stay out of your way, and the things that you do care about, like notes, maybe stay open at will. Not only that, but you may notice yet another additional thing here, these little info circles next to operations. These are new variable descriptions exposed in the operation list view here. When you see one of these info circles, it means a description has been configured onto the variable that can describe what it actually means or does. This description is implemented by the person who configures these operations. So if you don't see this in your account yet, you can get them added to your account by working with our team, or if you know what you're doing in P3L, can do it yourself. And the real value of having these here is it makes it a lot easier to train your new team members on costing. When you see a variable like hog out runtime, you might not know what that means if you're a brand new estimator. But of course, you can just take a look at what that description actually means and quickly understand, and therefore be able to more quickly contribute to costing and pricing out parts without any formal training. We're really excited about how this can be used. If this is something that you don't benefit from today and would love to, feel free to reach out to our team at support@paperlessparts.com. And yet, that is not all that we have done here as well. Let's keep rolling to the next thing, which is programmatic operation notes. Now, this has been a long time ask from us, so I'm so excited to tell you about it today. With programmatic operation notes, we can now automatically fill out notes for operations in the P3L code of your operations, meaning we can generate them with dynamic values from your costs, as well as set templates that correspond to your ERP notes. One thing that we've heard often is that folks working with ERP integrations want to benefit from the kind of templatizing in notes that they get on their side. We can now bring that to the paperless part side as well with this. In this simple example, I have taken two of the variables from this operation, the setup count and the volume removed, and added them line after line programmatically and automatically with this change. To show you what that looks like in code, in case you ever touch B3L, it's pretty simple. Here in this example, you can see that I am creating a list of things that I would like to display and then setting our notes to that list. You can do this one variable at a time, but this list method allows you to do multiple rows at a time. And so this is a really quick way, combined with the new display, to surface information faster and earlier in the process for quoting. So there's a lot of different ways this can be used, along with templatizing notes so they flow down nicely to your ERP with the right values so your production team can take advantage of the work that you've done in paperless parts. So we're maybe 4 or 5 features in here. And once again, I'm still not done. Those of you with clever eyes might have noticed a clever new looking unit over here. This is parts per hour runtime. Now, for the first time, in the settings of an operation or in the definition of the operation, depending on how you want it to work, either sometimes or every single time, you can talk about runtime in two new units: parts per hour and parts per minute. This, of course, is a different way of quantizing, ultimately the same thing that you'd be talking about by talking about runtime in hours, where the runtime in hours might be the runtime of a single part in the span of multiple hours or in minutes or seconds. Conversely, parts per hour is a way of taking that production and sort of analogizing it to that span of time, either an hour or a minute. So these rates might be less than a whole part per minute because a part takes longer than a few minutes, or more than a part per hour, for example. And not only can you set that in the configuration here, you can also override it in those values. So let's say I think I can make 30 parts per minute. I can just punch in 30 here, and all of my costing and pricing will recalculate around that assumption. So altogether, we took the collection of feedback and thoughts that people have had about costing and pricing in paperless parts, and we implemented them in these overhauls to that experience. As I talk about these, and as you see the rest of the demos today, I just want to shout out how valuable it is that folks like you give us feedback. We would not have been able to do all of these changes without the volume of feedback that folks like you send in to us. Whenever you tell a team member of ours about something that you wish Paperless Parts did, or you send an email to our support team, all of that feedback gets centralized in a place that Meg and I look at on the regular. And so we're able to go back through those lists, assemble all that feedback, and turn it into feature upgrades like this that we know you'll love. So really appreciate that. And I'm sure our support team doesn't want more emails from you, but go ahead and send them your feedback because we'd love to see it. And for a final upgrade from me before I turn it over to Meg, I'd love to tell you about a very different problem: entering geometric attributes. Here you can see a dialog that you may well be familiar with if you quote from prints today. This is the Edit Geometric Attributes dialog available from the geometry over here. This is something that you want to fill out when you don't have a model, because you want to provide at least a little bit of description as to the size of the model if your costing and pricing configuration depends on this information. Of course, filling it out here is a little bit impractical when you're dealing with a print. Where are you getting those dimensions from? The print. Wouldn't you love to actually fill it out while you're looking at the print? Well, I'm so excited to tell you that now you can actually do that. Here in the viewer, we are looking at our part setup tool. This is the first tab on the right side here. This is the place where you can enter things like the part number, revision, and description from suggestions, as well as, for the first time, enter your dimensions in length, width, and height, as well as swap units. And I'll let Meg tell you a little bit more about that later. From here, you can quickly enter the dimensions of the part. Let's say we want to take a look and say that this 2.63 is here, and we think that this is the X. We could just punch that in right here, and now that's been added. And yet, even that's a little tedious. Why do I want to type when the dimension's right there? Well, I can also just click on it and set it as the X. And I can repeat that process for the other dimensions. Looking at this one, probably this is Y. And in cases where there's not a dimension that you can still use the input and especially benefit from another thing that Meg will tell you a little bit more about later: the abilities to do math. In this case, we can see that this is 2.27 plus 0.359. So I'm going to type in that right here, and we can see that it automatically calculated the right value for that. So with this feature, it's now faster and easier than ever to enter information from the print, especially benefiting from our AI-powered print extractions that you're seeing the highlights of on screen. Again, this would not have been possible without feedback from folks like you. So really appreciate you sharing. And with that, I'll turn it over to Meg for the second set of upgrades.
Thanks, Hank. Kind of tough act to follow here, but I'm going to do my best. So, I am going to walk you guys through a couple of other small updates that our team has shipped over the last couple of months. First place I'm going to start is with default email templates. This might not be something that you commonly run into. It's more of kind of a one-time setup thing, but in paperless parts, you can create multiple email templates to choose from when you are sending a quote within settings. Historically, you haven't been able to choose which one should be your default. So, which one should pop up first when you are actually finalizing the quote and sending it to your buyer. That is now something that you can do in settings here. So, for quote send emails, order shipment emails, and order refund emails, you'll see that we have this new little default icon here letting you know which one is going to come up as the default option. If at any point you need to change that, you maybe update some of your copy on the message that you want to send to your buyers, you can come in here to edit one of these email templates and choose set as default. And then for any quotes going forward, and maybe let's take a look at one here. When you go to finalize it, just give this a refresh now that I've changed that. Oh, got a couple errors there. You'll see that we will pull in the correct default email template. Another one that was a little bit more noticeable, we did do some announcements for this, and I hope people have been able to take advantage of it, is updates that we made to sending quotes and the presentation of sent quotes. So, historically, there have been a couple of options that you can toggle on and off for what you want to include in a quote that you're sending back to your buyer, but it was only, I think, around like 6 or 7 fields. And we've been hearing from you guys over the years that you want a little bit more control over this presentation. Obviously, what you're actually providing back to your buyer needs to be clear. It needs to not include information that shouldn't be included. And you also want to make sure that it is the way that your buyers want to receive it. So we added a couple more display settings, and I am actually down here in the finalized quote settings area, just in case you haven't come down into this area. So you can select things like quote number, RFQ number, facility phone number to either hide or display. Some of these fields are quote PDF specific. So for instance, our quote PDFs can contain a link to the digital quote, but if you don't want to include that for your buyer, you no longer need to. And then we've also given you a couple of configuration options so that you can control how things like total and subtotal are displayed, who should be listed as the preparer and contact, whose contact information do you want on the quote for the buyer to potentially reach out to, and where should quote notes be placed. This one really depends on, I think, how long your quote notes typically are. That's what I've heard from customers. I would encourage you guys, we have a help doc online that actually shows a couple of examples of what this may or may not look like depending on which display settings you have included. But come in here, make sure that you're happy with what it is you're showing on the quote. Save changes will immediately be applied to all digital quotes. Just as a heads up, for quote PDFs, we only create those once. So if the quote PDF was created, and we create those when you send a quote. So for outstanding quotes that already have a quote PDF, these display settings won't impact those, but they'll impact all future quote PDFs. Display settings are just a part of it. Something we were hearing from you guys a lot was that the quote PDF was very hard to read when you printed it out. I don't have a copy of the old quote PDF on me right now, but for those of you who saw it before, the text was significantly smaller. And that includes for things like the unit price and total price, important things that you need to draw your buyer's attention to. So we restructured the quote PDF, gave it a facelift here and made it a little bit more readable, especially when it is printed out. If you haven't had the chance to take a look at this yet, I would encourage you to do so. Next up here is unit preferences. So like Hank said, one of the pieces of work that we shipped a few months ago was we had been hearing from shops for a long time that even if they were exclusively American shops and quoting for American buyers, sometimes you get prints that are in metric or you just receive information from your buyer that is in metric. And it was a pain to have to pull out a calculator to make to do that conversion on your own. So we've implemented a couple of things here to enable you to either work exclusively in metric if that's your preferred system of unit of measure, or on a case-by-case basis, swap between imperial and metric. First thing here is unit preferences. So that is going to be under company settings here. You have options to choose a preferred date format if you are working with international buyers or are an international shop. And you can also select your unit preferences between imperial and metric. This is going to be the default for everything except for analytics and operations. So I'll go ahead and maybe let's do metric here, and then I'll come to a quote. Gonna refresh. Okay. So now when I go in to look at maybe this PDF, for example, you'll notice that my geometric dimensions are listed in millimeters here. And this is frozen. This part has been sent in a quote. Into the same issue that Hank is. I'm just going to replace this part so I can edit the geometry here. So let's say that you are inputting some base geometry for a part and the print is in metric, but maybe it's not exactly in millimeters, right? One thing that we implemented, you saw Hank do math earlier. That same functionality that we introduced will also allow you to enter what the unit of measure should be alongside the actual value. So instead of typing in millimeters, I could say this is going to be 1 meter. And then when I click out or tab or hit enter, we'll do that conversion for you automatically. And the same thing is true for going from imperial to metric. So I could say 1 inch, it's going to convert that to millimeters. If you don't want to have to type that in, you also have the swap units button. In most of the places where you would enter information like this, it can be the geometric dimensions window that we're looking at. It can be nesting. So you do have kind of a more global control there as well. But I think that the typing in the units is pretty cool. And I do like to make sure that people are aware of that. And then finally, and this is the last update and also the most, I think, one of the more recent ones. Something we'd been hearing for a while was if a quote is expired or has passed its expiration date, but your buyers still have a link to the digital quote. They have historically had the option to click request requote, which would send an email to a member of your team letting them know that your buyer wanted a refreshed version of the quote. Some shops let us know that this could be interruptive. Buyers were just, spamming the button or sending too many emails. And from that email itself, you would click a link in order to create a copy of the quote. So it was leading to some just, I think, junk or like unintentional quotes in their account. We have introduced a new setting here to let you guys control whether or not this workflow is available. All this does is if I save this here, and then maybe let's go ahead and take a look at a quote. This is removing the option for requesting a requote. So that button just won't exist anymore. There we go. Okay. So let's take a look at this quote. It's expired. So now that I no longer have the option to request a requote, you're going to see that it's just grayed out and it will inform the buyer that the quote has expired, but there's nothing that they can do. They would just reach out to your team directly via email if they need a requote. I do have one final thing to share with you guys, and I'm actually going to switch over to the slides here. So this update is not a small hidden gem. It actually is a series of larger improvements that we shipped this morning. So I did want to make sure that you were all aware that this was available now. We have been working for the last couple of months on some improvements to working with orders, including a new facilitate order drawer that is specifically designed to make it faster and easier to create orders from large quote packages. So that includes some functionality like if every line item has the same quantities, being able to do select all. A search bar in case your buyer only placed an order for one line item out of a large quote package that you sent them. And also the ability to select a ships on date instead of having to figure out which lead time your buyer chose by back calculating from the ships on. So a couple of changes to that workflow. It should be fewer clicks. It should be pretty seamless. We've also introduced order editing. So if you have an order that is not credit card based and doesn't have any shipments on it, if your buyer comes back to you and they're like, actually, I need you to send this to a different shipping address, or you maybe got a PO requisition and you need to update the PO, you can now make those changes in the orders page. I'm not going to walk through a demo of all of this functionality now, and you will notice that it is not turned on in your account by default, but it is available for you to start testing and using in your settings. It is going to be opt-in through December. We want to do this just so that you guys don't have kind of a very interruptive change to your workflow. Many of our customers are regularly facilitating orders, and this can look like kind of a significant change, although it should be a very similar workflow. So if this is something that your team is interested in trying out, what you can do is come to settings. And then you'll notice under company settings, you have this option for new facilitate order drawer updates. So what I would do is come down here, turn this toggle on, play with it, see what you think. If you're not ready to start using this yet or you want to give your team a little bit more time to warm up to it, you can always toggle it back off, no problem. And we do have a help doc here, linked here with this Learn More. So if this is something you're interested in, give it a shot. Let us know what you think. And I'm sure we'll do more future sessions to walk you guys through these updates. And with that, I'm actually going to pass it back to Hank.
Fantastic. Thanks, Meg. Just one little teaser here before we close out and take any questions. I would love to tell you about Power 2026. Power, if you're not already familiar, is our annual users conference held in Boston. In 2026, it will be from May 6th to 7th, and you can register at power.paperlessparts.com. We are doing early bird pricing through January 31st. This is the best way to get to an event that is the most exciting place to learn more about paperless parts, how it can help you, and especially learn from your fellow peers in the manufacturing industry. We have been so excited to see some of the positive feedback out of events like this, and especially Power this year, where folks were excited to network with their fellow manufacturers, as well as learned a ton about how they can quote more efficiently using our platform. If you're interested, feel free to register at power.paperlessparts.com and make sure to get that early bird pricing before January 31st. Thanks. Now, if you have any questions, I encourage you to use our Q&A feature in the call, or if you can't figure that out, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll get to answering. Dustin asked, can we please add math to the purchase components cost field? Often need something like $5 per 25 parts. Meg, you want to take that one?
Yeah, that's a great question. Is that an operational variable? I assume that it is. Sorry, let me open the Q&A.
Yeah, I think Dustin's short answer there is we love that feedback. We're thinking about more of the places that we can bring some of that math input. One of the more complicated ones, of course, is going to be to costing and pricing if that's located there. So I think we'll definitely be thinking about that going forward. Appreciate the feedback. Sasha asked, will there be integrations to allow Canadian customers to check out via credit card?
Great question, Sasha. No plans to do this yet, but great feedback. Like Hank said, we'll add it to our list and be in touch for any future improvements.
Steve asked, can I get a link to the recording of this webinar to review later? Absolutely. For your being here, as well as for registering for the webinar, you'll get sent a link to a follow-up with the associated content. Andrew asked, will the split PDF feature demoed at Power 2025 be available? I believe that actually already is available. Meg, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, that should be available. We do have some documentation on how it works that we can send you after this call as a follow-up, but that feature is live for quote files.
So, Andrew, as you hear about that, just want to have you think about how you hear about updates from us. We're really excited by hosting webinars like this one. We're also always curious about how we can tell you about new things without overwhelming you with how often we're shipping new features. So feel free to send us some feedback as well about how you'd like to learn more about the things that go live. Joshua asked, can we update the quote preview so that the lead time shown to the customer says business days instead of days? This would make the wording clearer for them and help avoid any confusion. Okay.
Yeah, that's great feedback, Josh. We will definitely consider that for a future update. I've heard that before for sure. I know that you right now technically it says business days, but it is kind of hidden, and we don't want to confuse your buyers. So we will definitely keep that in mind for future improvements.
Peg asked, is there anything in work to have paperless parts do math for a welded part? Great question. The short answer is, like I mentioned before, we're always thinking about new places that we can bring some of these new and exciting math inputs, especially to costing and pricing. I would say that would be the first major step, would be bringing the kind of math input to your costing variables. And that would at least help you start to do that. But of course, we understand that welds are also often found in prints. And so you want to be able to work with them there. We're definitely thinking about how we can make it faster and easier to transcribe that information right from there. Great feedback. Michael asked, where can I get more information on P3L codes or programmable notes? Fantastic question as well. Give me 1 second to get you that documentation link, and I will drop it right in the chat here. I will just copy a link to exactly that spot. You can see I just dropped a link in the help there right to that very specific programmable notes documentation. Great question. Sasha asked, when working through bombs, you can't seem to toggle through previous and next between the child component drawings. This would be super helpful to have. That's very interesting feedback. I would say I actually do expect you to be able to do that. Specifically, Sasha, if you use the button at the bottom right of the part setup tool for next part or component, that one will actually take you through children. That would be different than the top one, which only takes you through individual line items. So hopefully that will help you get that done a little bit faster. Annie asked, we are wanting to be able to input purchased hardware pricing per pack. Quantity needed is 150. They're sold in packs of larger sizes. This will make the purchased hardware library more accurate and calculate them correctly if the quantity on the quote changes. I think, Annie, that might be a real specific costing and pricing question, one that I maybe can't fully answer without the context of looking at your work. But feel free to follow up with us at support@paperlessparts.com to kind of clarify what you mean there, and happy to talk to you to learn more and see if we can solve that. Taking a look at the chat again, Susan asked, we do multiple parts on a quote, but we don't always want to send all of the parts in the quote to the customer. Is it possible to get a checkbox for the items you want to appear on the quote sent to the customer? Megan, if you want to try to take that one.
I can take this one. I think same thing. We not in the works yet, but great feedback. I'd love to hear more about your use case and where that's coming from, how exactly you guys are doing that.
Some more questions here. Sasha asked as well, is there any potential that nesting will be updated to allow for more custom crop lines for scrap? Great feedback as well. I'd have to learn a little bit more about what you mean there. What I will say as well is, as a lot of you are thinking about all these kind of smaller upgrades, this is fantastic feedback to send to our team at support@paperlessparts.com, or when you're talking to one of your Paperless Parts representatives. All this feedback will make it to us, and we'll be considering things like this over time.
They do share all of this with us, so just so you guys know. Josh had a question about order editing. I do want to address this since it is a new feature. Editing an order is part of the new update. How does this affect the information that gets sent out to your ERP? For most of our standard ERP integrations, information is sent from paperless to your ERP when the order is created. We are not providing any new trigger or anything to update an existing record in another system. We built this more for the intention of something has changed and I've updated it in my ERP, but now paperless is incorrect or out of date. So this is more for keeping both of your systems in sync, more so than I'm going to edit something in paperless so that I can update another system downstream. Does the updated information get resent to the customer? You do have the option when you're editing an order to send a notification to your buyer that something has changed on the order. And you can also, that update will include just the new information about the order. It won't tell them specifically what has changed. It'll just tell them what the updated version is. I think that's it. Yeah, and then Hank, do you want to take this interrogation question?
Yeah, Kevin asked, is there any way to interrogate from a model of a casting? It's a great question. I would say right now, we are really focused on helping you cost out those directly machine parts versus machine parts from a subset or a starting workpiece model. But rest assured, we're definitely thinking about how to do that more in the future. And I'll certainly see if I can check with you when we get to that point to see how we can make that a little better. Joshua asked, your team has made great progress with bulk updating. Thank you. Will this functionality be available for custom attributes? Short-term answer is right now, no, but of course we're thinking about how we can make the bulk updating experience better over time. And certainly custom attributes is a big step in that direction. So definitely thinking about that over time. Michael, just making sure that you saw the link that I dropped above. You asked about the P3L codes for programmable notes. I dropped that link. It is help.paperlessparts.com link. We'll just drop it one more time in the chat. Help docs for P3L updates. Fantastic. Checking to see if there are any other questions. Thank you all for being wonderfully engaged with this half-hour webinar. Really appreciate hearing your thoughts and feedback and questions all the time. And I'm so glad to see some of your positive reactions in the chat. Thank you for spending a little bit of Thursday with us. And once again, thank you for sharing all of this feedback over time. We hope that all of these brand new features will help make your life a little or a lot easier in paperless parts. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.